everybody. My name is Allie Colbrand. I'm the Director of Development here at Feeding San Diego. And I'm really excited to welcome you all to our first of many, what we're calling Inside Look panels, where we're going to do deep dives into different aspects of Feeding San Diego's work, so that those of you in the audience, volunteers, donors, members of the Grove, can have an opportunity to learn more about the impact that you're making every day. So our first one, as you all know, is going to focus on food rescue. And my colleague Carissa is going to be moderating the panel. She's going to come up in a second. For those of you that would like to join us after the talk, we're going to be doing an optional tour downstairs of Feeding San Diego if you'd like. So afterwards, we'll gather in the back of the room, and anyone who wants to join us on the tour, please do. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Carissa. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. As Allie mentioned, my name is Carissa. I am the Senior Communications Manager at Feeding San Diego, and I am so excited to have a rapt audience today that is excited about food rescue, is passionate about it, or wants to learn more. I spend a lot of my time talking about, writing about food rescue. Hello. And so, you know, sorry. I was seeing you guys come in and I was like, should I wait for them? I just started. I felt like it was the opening credits to a movie. Okay, so before we start the panel, I want to just kind of make sure we're all on the same page about the definition of food rescue, right? Because there's food recovery. I'm not sure if anyone's heard that term as well. Here, when we say food rescue, we're talking about stopping the act of food being thrown away. So we're talking about rescuing food that is still edible, usually from businesses and farms, and we are not letting that food be thrown away, and instead we are diverting that food to people who need to eat it and want to eat it. So that's what we're talking about when we say food rescue. And so we work with businesses. We have several represented here who are food donors, and we work with farms as well. And these are two big sources of food rescue. There are also others, we will talk about that in the panel. But that's who we are working with to get this food and make sure it's not going into the landfill and it is instead getting to people that we serve. So I'm going to introduce our panel without further ado. So we have Kate Garrett. My colleague Kate is our food rescue manager here at Feeding San Diego. And Kate actually assembled this panel today. These are her colleagues that she works with very closely. All these people work super closely in food rescue. So Kate, thank you for assembling. We have Tinamarie Squieri. Did I enunciate too much? Charitable Foundation Manager with our regional food donor Smart and Final. And Tinamaree's role is with the Smart and Final Charitable Foundation. We also have Stephanie Morris here from our local grocery chain Jimbo's. Her title is Sustainability Coordinator. Elizabeth Prado is with us from Life Christian Center, and her title is Life Acts Director. I love this title. Thanks for being with us. And we also have Christine Dopson. Christine is a volunteer MealConnect driver. We will get all into MealConnect driving in the panel as well. So thank you all for being here. I want to just take a moment to acknowledge that the work that you all do, although maybe you don't think about it in your daily role, but is really helping not only to protect people and provide a solution to hunger, but you're also helping combat the very dire effects of climate change that we are seeing now. So thank you guys for prioritizing this in your day-to-day lives. Something that I say and write a lot is that hundreds of thousands of people in San Diego County are facing hunger, yet 35% of all food in the U.S. is wasted every single year. Just gonna let that land for a minute because it doesn't make sense. And so every step with food rescue is trying to get closer to a middle ground of that there's less people who are facing hunger and there's less food going to waste, and it's better for people and for our planet. So in our last fiscal year, just to give you guys a background on where Feeding San Diego falls in this, last fiscal year we did rescue nearly 28 million pounds of food. That number is big, but it could always be bigger. And so that is what we were able to do with the help of our food donors, with the help of our community and agency partners, with the help of our volunteers, with your generous contributions. That network was able to accomplish that last year. And right now we do have 108 food donors that our agency and community partners are picking out from on a regular basis. So again, big numbers, but there's room to grow, as we will hear. So, just another little food for thought. This work is really redefining what maybe we know food banks to be. Maybe we think, oh, food banks just store a bunch of canned food and then they get that food to people. This is really changing, that work as it has traditionally stood. And this is definitely something that is pioneered by Feeding America, of which we are a member, the nation's largest domestic hunger relief network. So I've spoken quite a bit. I'm going to play a short video. Taylor is going to help me, in which Kate stars. So we're all probably visual people, so I just want to play this. It's super short, but it'll just kind of give you a visual look into what I've just described.
Feeding San Diego has been working to rescue food for over 14 years. There's plenty of food in San Diego to feed each and every person in need. It's not a sourcing or a scarcity problem, it's a distribution problem. Feeding San Diego works together with our food donors as well as our community partners to keep food local and rescue all of the excess food that would have otherwise gone into the landfill, so that we're then able to actually get the food right out to those community members in need.
I didn't realize the impact on the environment by all that waste. It's perfectly good, healthy, amazing food.
I was floored with how much they supplied fruit and vegetables and meat and noodles. It was just overwhelming.
Thank you for the food.
Thank you, because you're saving lives.
It makes a huge impact. For some of us, it just makes a huge difference.
Feeding San Diego is feeding people, not landfills.
So before we really start this panel, I just want to bring up too that, I don't know if any of you are familiar, but the United Nations has set 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and these are an urgent call for all countries to act. And so we are very honored, especially because of our work in food rescue, to have been named a Sustainable Development Goals champion by our United Nations Association of San Diego. For aligning with 4 of the goals: zero hunger, responsible consumption and production, climate action, and partnerships for the goals, which is exemplified here, because you really can't achieve any of this without partnerships and without bringing in your network and a community of people. So, okay, without further ado, I'm going to have our panelists, I'm going to run down, start with Kate and just go down the line, but I would love for each of you to just describe a little bit about your daily role and where you fall in this landscape of food rescue. So are you a connector? Are you a food donor? Are you an agency partner? And let's just go down the line.
Sure. So my name is Kate Garrett. I'm the food rescue manager here at Feeding San Diego. I think put very plainly, I am the connector. And so we are able to find strategic connections, matching our agency partners, our community partners with our food donors, food businesses across the county, in order to get more food out to more people.
I'm Tinamarie Squieri, manager of the Charitable Foundation for Smart and Final. We are donors to Feeding San Diego, which is such an honor to be a part of such an amazing, top-notch organization. I tell this to Kate all the time. They get gold stars every day with us because they're so incredible. And we work with 17 Feeding America agencies in the state of California, because we go from way up north to way down south and everywhere in between. And making sure that we're doing our due diligence in our stores to be able to get the product out and not put it in landfills or composting. So in our stores, what we tell everybody is Feeding America first. Your donation boxes come first, then compost, then waste. So it's really important for us to make sure we have that connection and they understand that. So everyone that works with Kate and her team and here with Feeding San Diego are just like so impressed and amazed of the support and the communication we receive back and forth has made this program so seamless for us. So thank you.
Ditto to all of that. A lot of snaps. I only did a few, but the whole thing is snaps. My name is Stephanie, and I'm the Sustainability Coordinator at Jimbo's. We're a lot smaller than Smart and Final. We exist just in San Diego County, and our focus is on natural and organic foods. We support a lot of local farmers, and the beginning of our mission is just to do the right thing, and we do that through food. And so a big part of my role is working with Kate and our donors to make sure that we're serving the community the highest quality possible produce and prepared foods that we can, both when they're shopping in store or at a local food pantry. So thank you so much for being the best food recovery organization that I could ask to partner with.
Sure.
Beautiful. Hey. I'm Elizabeth Prado, and I'm with Life Christian Center International Ministries of San Diego. I run as a volunteer as our director for Life Acts, our community outreach program. I've been doing this for 33 years. I started out as a teenager, and so I come at the end of being a connector, a builder, you name it. I'm a driver. I still haul boxes every single day. We do this 7 days a week. So I've just become, my husband says, from this. So it's wonderful because we have, it's a lifestyle for me. I can say this. I do this, again, 7 days a week, and it's on a volunteer basis. We're 100% volunteer driven. We serve anywhere from 6,000, and since it's been with COVID and inflation, up to 9,000, and we're hitting like 16,000 people a month. Wow. So we're very privileged to be partners with Feeding San Diego. Kate, you've made it just amazing, connecting us with like Amazon, Walmart, Costco, all the different stores. I see Christian in the background. He's connected us with Aldi and Marilyn. Yay! She's our partnerships agency coordinator. So thank you for the team having us here. And I love this group, the panel that we've just met this morning. We're going to connect. So that's part of the connecting. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Hi, I'm Christine Dopson. I'm a volunteer driver. I drive the donations from the donors to the agency partners using the MealConnect program that they established, going online. They put opportunities out there, and if I'm available, I accept them, and then I drive from again, like I said, from the donations from the stores to the agencies that need them.
How are we all doing on audio? Can you guys hear our panelists?
Oh, sorry.
Project.
Yeah,
okay.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm very close to you all, but I want to be considerate of everyone, so we will project more. Okay. On that note, we will project into our first question. So, Tinamarie, I'm going to start with you because this is something I thought about a lot when I first started here. It was like, well, what does this food look like? Like, what is this food? Is it like different than what I buy? Is it like bad food? Like, so can you just tell us in your stores, like, what is the food that is going to this Feeding San Diego, Feeding America first pile? What are the what are the products? What do they look like? Fill us in.
Okay, so can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that. I'll try. I'm Italian. I can speak very loud. So in our stores, we identify 4 areas. It's our meat, our deli, our dairy, and our bakery areas. So those 4 managers, the leads in that area, go through the stores daily, looking at product that is still top-notch, product you and I would still purchase. There's nothing wrong with it. It's still good, but the expiration date is coming up. And in our stores, we have to follow stringent rules that by a certain time, if this food is not purchased, it cannot be sold in our stores. Milk, for instance, 5 days before it will expire, it has to be removed from our shelves. So with that in mind, our leads are going through looking, and they see the milk, it's 5 days out, but it's still good. How many of you in your
in your refrigerators have milk that's probably 1 or 2 days left to go, right? Exactly. So, but there's also 2 days after that 5 days, that milk is still good, which we have all used milk after that date. So you have 7 days. So when they go ahead and put that product in a refrigerated area and the agency picks up from us, it now, even if it's been in there a day, it still has 6 days of life. And they'll turn around within a day and get that out to who needs it. Same thing with our bakery items. And okay, let's be honest. Our bakery items have quite a bit of preserves in them. And they can last quite a bit longer than even the expiration date. So how many of us have picked things up out of our cabinets, our pantries, and go, oh, this is expired. Well, it's only a couple of days. It's 3 or 4 a week. I can still eat it, right? It's that exact same food product that's being picked up from us. And canned good items, as most of you know, I've picked up some expired canned good items out of the back of my pantry because I needed it. And it's maybe been 3 weeks, a month, but it's still good. That's exactly what can be donated. It's everything we would eat. And when we tell our folks, hey, when you're putting this food out, especially produce is a little bit more, we have to be a little more cautious. So if it isn't being picked up immediately, our produce lead will go back, look at the produce, and if he sees something that doesn't look right, it'll go to compost, because we will not donate something that isn't something, and I always tell my folks, if you aren't going to feed it to your kids, don't give it to somebody else. And that's what they do. That's the rules that they follow. So the food's still good, it's still edible, but we want to save it from the landfills. That does no one any good. Or throwing milk down the drain doesn't help anyone either. So we always are very cautious about that. And we have a backroom lead that actually is the person who takes on all of this product, verifies it before it walks out that door. So it has checks and balances along the way. And the manager doesn't get involved, but he oversees the program. And it gives our folks inside the store the opportunity to really take this on and feel like they're doing something bigger than themselves, and they're doing something greater to help their community, which is what we want. So that's how the food goes.
You've given us such an amazing introduction to this because, I don't know, I have never worked in the grocery industry. Many of us probably have not. So these are some inner workings that we are revealing that I think are very fascinating, personally. So Stephanie, you are with Jimbo's. You guys focus, as you said, on organic, local farms. I love your produce section.
Me too.
I love Jimbo's, you guys. I'm like their #1 fan and ambassador. So if I seem biased, I'm sorry. I just shopped there since I was like a kid. So what about you with produce? Like, how does your flow go? Because you have so much produce, and you're working with these local farms, and we know that time is of the essence.
Yes, definitely time is of the essence. The sell-by dates issue that Tinamarie mentioned is a big part of my job when it comes to making sure our food rescue flow is flowing and not getting stuck on some speed bump somewhere in the department. My job is really to educate and empower staff to feel like the extra steps for food rescue are not only worth it, but can be time savers, honestly. Taking the time to compost packaged food or bread that we forgot to freeze after we pulled it is a waste of time. Nobody wants to stand out by the dumpster and pull a plastic bag off of bread and throw it away and do this repetitive thing. What's so much more rewarding and what's so much more sustainable is making sure that you have the programs in place and you've got your bin designated so you can preserve the food for your next donation day. So like we all know, we've eaten things that are a bit maybe out of code and can't be sold anymore, but they're perfectly good. Shockingly, some of my coworkers, that's news to some of us, and I have to remind all of us that food indication or food safety indicators are not the expiration dates. It's not the best by date. We have a program in our stores called Free Box, and if a product is not fit for sale because we don't sell it, it came to us as a mispick, or if it's expired today, we pull it, we take it to the back. Our coworkers, including myself, can have at it for lunch. You can eat whatever you want out of the Free Box that day. If you want to take anything home, it's 5 cents. No questions asked. That's just how it goes. So part of my job is whenever I see someone grabbing from Free Box, I'm like, yes, reducing food waste, thank you. And then whatever doesn't get taken for our coworkers gets funneled into that refrigeration station for donations. Ooh, I kind of wrecked station for donation. Yeah, and so we do a lot of education, bottom up, top down. I talk with the managers, I talk with all our clerks, which are like entry-level employees, and we have our receivers in all of the stores that are not only receiving product and making sure we get what we're buying, but they make sure that what we are no longer selling is leaving with the partnerships that we've made through Feeding San Diego. With produce, yes, it is very tricky. I realize that I didn't actually answer that part of your question. But produce is tricky because we take a lot of pride in our produce sections. That's part of why Jimbo is in San Diego specifically, because he has relationships directly with organic farmers here. We don't have those relationships in LA or the Bay Area, so we don't have stores there. That being said, that culture of just top quality really does trickle down into our produce managers. They take a ton of pride in what they're not only merchandising for sale, it's not cheap. It's the highest quality stuff, you know, it has to look perfect. And so when they pull it from the shelf, I have to remind them, like, you guys, this is our breakfast, and this is also our food rescue partners' breakfast. Like, we can make time to move this into a banana box. It looks really good. Like, don't worry about the, you know, little tiny scratch from when it fell off the tree or whatever it is. Like, it's local produce. It's really good. Just because it's ripe for the picking today doesn't mean that nobody's gonna eat it. So yeah, it's a little bit of coaching and like gentle nudging to tell them that like there's, you know, A+++ for what you're selling, and then there's still A+ stuff that people, our neighbors, aren't able to come in and purchase. So why are we not taking the time to make sure that it goes out to them? That's why I set this, you know, this stuff up, so you don't have to spend time at the dumpster. It's just because it's compost doesn't mean it's pleasant, you know. I like compost, but a lot of our team members don't. So that's kind of a big selling point: is less time at the dumpster, more time for food to our neighbors. So.
Yeah. Has anyone here actually been to a landfill? It's very smelly.
It's super cool. Highly recommend.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, that could be a field trip for this group as well. Tinamarie, I want to come back to you and talk about sense of urgency. Sense of urgency, we've heard from you that it's really dictated by these dates, right? And that causes the daily urgency. But what about when it is set aside? Like, how fast do you need someone to come and get this food for it to still be food safe for our neighbors who need food to eat?
So we try to make sure, working with Kate and the agencies picking up from us at our various stores, to try and do 2 to 3 days a week. Because if you need something that's going to go out of code in the next 3 days, you need it to be picked up fairly quickly in the time frame of that week span. So if we put it in on a Saturday, you want to make sure it's getting picked up on that Monday. And we do have sections where product is stored. So our meat, our cheeses are all in, our meats are all in our freezer. Our cheeses, our dairies are all in our refrigerated area, eggs, whatever it may be. And so we have also canned food. We have in the back room where our back room lead is. So he's the one that goes through middle aisle and pulls all the cans and gets that product to the back. And so 2 to 3 days is really where we want to be. Our goal eventually is 3 days a week. And as people come on board and understanding it, it takes time to build the recognition of what they need to be doing. So in any retail store, we have turnover. So it's a constant education, it's a constant rebuilding, a constant reinforcing. And as we have those leads, and the leads are the people that are in charge of their various departments, they then help educate those new folks that come on what they need to be doing. And it just helps us to help those folks to understand it needs to be out of here as quickly as it can. So
yeah, I think urgency is always a factor in this work because food has a shelf date. And like we're saying, even if we could go beyond the shelf date, we know that food is best enjoyed fresh. No, none of us probably are choosing to eat this older food. We know life gets in the way. I've totally been there with you where I'm like, oh, bought that, I forgot to eat it this week. It's always, someone told me it's always the arugula. It's like I bought the whole thing of arugula and I had to make an arugula salad every day and then I forgot. So this brings us to you, our amazing distribution partners. So tell us about your pickup, Elizabeth. Like we want to hear, you mentioned Amazon, Aldi, these are, definitely businesses that we recognize, but as Tinamarie just said, she's aiming for 3 times a week picking up. So that means you're busy too, picking up. So just walk us through a little bit, where you're picking up from currently, and how that process works for you on your side of things.
Well, we're so grateful, first of all, for the donors who are very conscientious about the sustainability and the care for us as the agencies. We pick up from 14 donors through Feeding San Diego, as well as some other donors that we have in the community. I even have neighbors who have businesses and they donate to us too. So sometimes I get a knock at my door. Do you want like 2 pallets of tostadas? I'm like, yes, we will receive it. So we're all about the food rescue. And you did ask, has any of us visited a landfill? My husband has done a tour. We live in a beautiful new community, and it literally is across a landfill. So I do know, people are like, $1 million homes across a landfill. I'm like, yes, it's a lifestyle, right? So we are definitely all about making sure it is true. Windows are closed. So we are all about it in our agency, making sure that the food does not go to waste. And I come, not as a volunteer, as a teenager, but I come from the other side too, where I remember being in the lines, and government cheese was like a big deal for me. I was really excited about it, and so when we receive from the donors and we receive from the neighbors, the community that comes together, the school districts who had a surplus of lunches, whatever it is, there's no limit to making sure that that food, when we get told we're going to get 3 pallets of cheesecakes from Costco and it's going to get tossed if we don't pick it up, we will make sure to pick it up and someone will be blessed. So we make sure to get it all out there. I always want to emphasize that, again, sometimes we think, okay, the food comes and we're like, okay, this is not as acceptable, or this, some folks will be like, okay, I'll take it, it doesn't matter. So we come from the end of, it's almost like 4 filters, where I know there's kind of a threshold that we can accept food even up to 40% and it's not edible, but we're like, okay, we try to have that great relationship with the donors and see like, what can we do to make it more possible that more of the food would be edible. And when we do hear from donors saying that we have an urgent need for you to pick this up, and we are like, whatever we can do, thank God for our volunteer drivers. Again, we're 100% volunteer driven. I have like a crew of 17 drivers, and I'm like, can you pick this up on your break in La Jolla? Can you come? I mean, family are voluntold, so everyone that's within my perimeter is involved in what we do. There's no possibility you breathe around me without believing in food rescue and preventing food waste. So again, it's a lifestyle.
Yes. So thank you so much. You brought me perfectly back to Kate, because we've established now, we have our food donors, we have our community and agency partners, but we're in the middle, if you will. So like, I want you to go into what our role is in all this, and it sounds like, I just want to preface it with, it sounds like there needs to be someone saying, take care with all of this. Like let's do this right, and be that communicator and connector. So I want you to elaborate on that.
Sure. So I like to think of us as kind of the missing link, right? If you were to think of food rescue as a puzzle, having someone take a step back and look and inspect each and every little puzzle piece, to then actually be able to make them come together to form this cohesive, beautiful picture, which could be ending hunger, right? So getting to know our agency partners like Elizabeth at Life Christian Center, getting to know our our donors like Tinamarie and like Stephanie at Smart and Final and Jimbo's, being able to really listen and understand what their capacities and their goals and their preferences are, to then bring everyone together to end hunger, right? So being able to be the connector, the coordinator, the educator when it comes to food safety, the trainer, the advocate, because oftentimes, like Carissa said, these entities just want to be focusing on what it is they do best, which is serve the community. I mean, sure, in different ways, right? But we all share the same goal, which is feeding people, not landfills. So being able to connect these agency partners to these donors, to these volunteer drivers, to make it all happen is invaluable. And so, yeah, I guess I would answer with that, is that we are the connector.
Yeah, and I think too, bandwidth, right? Like, you guys need to focus on selling food. Your business is to sell groceries, and you're a for-profit business, and you need to focus on services. Food distribution, oftentimes with our partners, isn't even the only thing they offer to the communities that they are servicing. So, I think you've laid it out so well that we can step in to help them, our partners, focus on what they do best and be a, ally in this work that is now law. We're going to get into this, but this is no longer an option for these businesses to do this. However, you should know that these two food donors present have been donating long before this was made a law by the state of California. So going to get into that. This ties into the next question, and I want to bring Christine in to talk about MealConnect. And MealConnect, because like Kate's saying, there's a schedule. There, how do you know who's going when, who has what, right? How do you track all of that? And there is something that we have that is an app or a website platform called MealConnect. So I want you to just tell them a little bit about MealConnect, its origins, and then we will talk to Christine briefly about her experience doing now what you were doing, going to these stores and picking up this food.
Sure. So MealConnect is actually a platform that was developed by Feeding America. It's free, and it can be used on a web browser or as an app. It can be used by donors, by agency partners, by volunteer drivers, as well as food banks. So we adopted it back in 2015, and since then we've rolled out various features or functions of this platform. So like Tinamarie was mentioning, there's such a value in having consistency and reliability, and so that's why we really try to prioritize establishing daily or weekly pickup schedules. No one has to question, is someone coming in to pick up the donations today? It's known that it will happen, right? But for some of these donors that don't necessarily have the ability to anticipate when these donations will become available, this platform is able to be used to post donations as they become available in real time. So a donor like Frito-Lay or like National Food Group, these food service distributors or manufacturers can go in, they have 3 pallets worth of food that is perfectly edible. Nobody wants to throw away 3 pallets. Again, to Stephanie's point, the labor that goes into actually throwing that product away. But also, if it's perfectly edible, why is it not getting into the hands of people that are facing food insecurity? So this donor is able to actually post the donation on MealConnect, this platform. Again, they can use an app that's on their phone. They can post the parameters, 3 pallets, give an estimated weight of the product. Give a few details of, what's the pack sizing, because it's always helpful to have the unit specs, right? So they can post these details, any relevant notes in the section on the platform that says, look out for Fred when you come to the site. Anything like that, they're able to actually post in the platform. And then our agency partners are notified almost immediately, right? So they post the donation. We, as Feeding San Diego, are monitoring those posts, making sure we're vetting the donors before they just, submit their first initial post, and we're talking with them about best practices and all of that. Then our agency partners are able to receive these notifications via text message, email, phone call. They receive the details of this donation. They make the decision. Is this appropriate for our organization? Is this something that we feel comfortable distributing out to our community based on varying capacities, desires? Is it culturally appropriate for their community? They are able to make that decision and have the autonomy to say, this works. This is something that we want to receive, bring back to our facility, and then distribute out to the community. And then again, MealConnect, we've like I mentioned, we've rolled out various functions. So there's real time, and then there's the volunteer driver program, which is also known as Middle Mile. So if there's an agency partner out there like Christian Center that wants to accept these pallets of products, these pallets of food, but they don't have the means to go and make the pickup, whether it be staffing shortages, whether it be a lack of vehicle capacity, we can actually insert a volunteer driver into this equation, like Christine, and we can alert the volunteer drivers that are on the platform, which we have currently about 17 of them, so that they can make the decision. Does this work with my schedule? Do I have am I willing and able to go make this pickup and drop it off at this agency partner's facility to take some of that burden off, right? So there are so many different ways that MealConnect is really streamlining these processes and making things easier and a little bit more seamless for everyone who has quite a lot on their plate. So yeah, that's a little bit about MealConnect.
Yes, and we should note that MealConnect was developed by Feeding America because they have resources that even we, their members, may not have, right? To develop an app, build a website specifically for this function. That might not be within a wheelhouse of a smaller hunger relief organization. So it's really helpful for us to be part of that network and to be given access to this type of technology that can make things easier. It's your moment.
Oh, wow.
So, this work it's not glamorous. You're getting in your car, you're driving, tell us about what it's like to accept this and just go out and pick up some food.
I mean, it's been a great opportunity for me. I mean, I knew about Feeding San Diego for a long time. I'm a co-leader of a Girl Scout troop, and we come here every year and work at the warehouse and all that. So I knew it was a great organization. During the pandemic, my kids were doing the homeschooling thing, so I didn't have a lot of extra time, but I knew I wanted to do something. So I called up, and they told me about this program where I could be a driver, and it's great. You get a text message. It'll tell you. You click on it, tells you what the opportunity is. If you have the right type of, you check if you have the right type of vehicle, the location of where you're picking up, and I've done all over downtown, Encinitas, Escondido, all over, Rancho Bernardo. Sometimes it's a small business that just has a few frozen items. And then I've also now doing a reoccurring every week at the Aldi here in Mira Mesa, and bringing it to the Community Food Connection in Poway. That requires, so I've had a lot of different experiences, as you can imagine. Some of it is it's all boxed up, neat and tidy. You just put it in your car, go on your merry way. It's great. My weekly experience has been a little different, where there's a lot more of gleaning, going through what is being donated. Again, it's a huge amount of food. It's myself and another volunteer, and I don't know, he does the calculations of the pounds, but I don't know, 400, 500 pounds of food, it's incredible. But there is a lot of going through and making sure that it's acceptable, especially with the produce. It can be a little hit or miss, but there's so much good stuff in there, you don't want to miss it. But there is a number of items that we do have to, dispose of. But trying to think what else is useful.
What kind of car do you have?
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't have the biggest car. I have a Forester. So there are some opportunities I'm not able to do. The man I work with on the weekly at Aldi, he has a van. So together we make it happen. But the bigger the better, definitely. If I had to do it over again, I'd get a bigger car probably. But yeah, it's been a great experience. I can't say enough. It's just been, and it just feels so good to be part of the process. Now that I've seen how much waste there is and how much need there is, now you can't look away, and it makes me want to do more. But
so there's vans that are parked out saying Feeding San Diego, the orange vans. As a driver, are you allowed to come down and use one of those vans?
I never asked that question.
We're getting to that.
That's a great
moving
question.
towards that. Yes,
So those are available for the drivers if they need to pick up a larger load.
they will be.
Will be.
Those were recently acquired thanks to a grant. So those did not exist for a long time until just recently. So, there were a few, many less. There's a lot now. I see every time I drive in, I'm like, wow, look at all these. Okay, you guys, can someone give me a time check? Yeah. It is 11:06. Okay, we've been talking a lot. I want to I want to cover one last thing, which could potentially be the most boring thing. Because it has to do with legislation. I don't know, maybe you guys love reading laws as they're written and how they're enacted, and I don't know. It's very dense. It's very dense. But there is this law that I've been referring to multiple times throughout this conversation. So I just do want to go to Kate to just describe this law. Technically, it's called SB 1383. It needs a new, more colloquial name now that it's, made into law and it's been passed. So just walk us through that, and then we'll just close briefly. There was a part about challenges, but I think you guys have made many of those clear through our conversation, so that's good. And then we will end with our one optimistic note at the very end, but take it away on SB 1383, just a brief overview.
Sure. So Feeding San Diego was established back in 2007. We've been rescuing food ever since then. Fast forward to 2016. Then Governor Jerry Brown was able to actually set pretty lofty goals, right, for emissions, targeting reducing emissions throughout the state of California. So plainly speaking, we are, as a state, trying to redirect 20% of the food that is currently being thrown into the landfill, make sure that it's actually getting into the hands of people that are facing food insecurity. So it's a statewide goal, but it basically means that there are food service businesses across the county in San Diego that are now going to be required to donate food to food recovery organizations like Feeding San Diego and like Life Christian Center to make better use of that food, right? And so composting is part of it. There's a lot to this law to be uncovered, and composting is absolutely valuable. However, the Environmental Protection Agency's food recovery hierarchy states that feeding people, making sure that this food actually gets into the hands of people, is the number one environmentally friendly way to reduce waste. Organic waste is immense in feeding in California and in the U.S. as a whole. So this law is actually encouraging and really requiring these businesses that were otherwise throwing this food away to actually donate it to feeding organizations like Feeding San Diego and like Life Christian Center.
And there are two parts to this law. We have well represented here today the grocery business, but starting in 2024, other businesses, organizations will also be required to donate their food, and that includes a different area of food, prepared foods. So event venues, medical centers, schools, very different than grocery. We like grocery. It's packaged. It's it's easier, even though, as you've heard, it's not easy. But so maybe next panel we go into the 2024 businesses that have to comply. So okay, we're gonna wrap up. I want to hear from each of you what the future of food rescue looks like to you, to end us on an optimistic note, and then we'll go Q&A.
I think normalizing secondhand food, right? I think just getting comfortable with being able to receive food that might be imperfect, and inevitably breaking the stigma of hunger. There are so many people out there that are wondering where their next meal is coming from, but we have enough food in San Diego to feed each and every individual. And so, again, just getting comfortable with secondhand food. Everybody loves a thrift store nowadays, but what about being, comfortable with eating food that might be coming down the pipeline and not, that perfectly fresh apple that has no blemishes on it. I think that's what I'm looking forward to the most.
I think what I'm looking forward to, I think what I'm looking forward to is that all of our associates, as they're walking the stores, understands what they need to be doing to make sure nothing goes to waste, that we don't have composting, that we don't go. I mean, in our company, we've actually reduced the size of our trash bins to the smallest one so they cannot fill anything large. So we've actually reduced to the smallest trash bin, and cardboard's not allowed in there, plastic's not allowed, so we segregate everything. But the goal is eventually that everyone understands we don't waste anything, that everything goes to someone, including ourselves, that we can enjoy that apple that is not perfect, and it's fine. And most of us do nowadays. Farm fresh has always been a real big area for people. And a lot of times when you're getting farm fresh, it's not perfect. So we have that idea that it doesn't have to be perfect to be edible. And that's the goal for us, is to make sure nothing goes to waste.
Beautiful. I failed to ask how many people here are in the food industry in some way. Okay, so the point of that is kind of tying back to Kate's mention of the food recovery hierarchy. It's an EPA upside down pyramid, like the nutritional pyramid, but it's upside down, and it says feed people first. Well, it says source reduction, so reduce the sources of waste. For us, that means order less. For me at home, that means buy less. No arugula unless I'm making salad that day. And then the next one down is feed people. And then the next one down is different types of disposal options. And the very smallest sliver at the bottom is landfill. I think that the future of food rescue happens across the food system. So I mentioned food industry, being employed by the food industry, right? Not very many of us here are, but all of us are part of the food system. And the food system dictates what we as retailers are supposed to make our stores look like for you and us as shoppers, right? So if we are changing our buying and purchasing and eating and wasting habits, businesses, farms, food rescue organizations are going to have to follow. So.
Amazing.
Future of food rescue. I always believe it starts at home. So I encourage anyone who has, whether it's businesses, volunteers, or involved in nonprofit donors, and anybody in the community, again, starts at home. And just like, like Tinamarie was talking about, we start by separating those items, and it becomes a culture. And I'm very proactive with not only my family, community, but I make it a point to, we're all patrons of the coffee shops or the grocery stores, but we have relationships with everyone in our business, the businesses that we deal with, and that we eat at the restaurants, and we literally, we ask questions like, oh, what do you do with the food at the end of the night, or what happens with this, and a lot of times in building those relationships, it opens up a realm for them to say hey, by the way, you can work through Feeding San Diego, or you can, work with us, whatever we need to do, so that way, again, it becomes proactive in the community, and of course, starting locally, and that's how sometimes the neighbors, they see the Feeding San Diego van, which, by the way, thank you again to Cal Recycle Feeding San Diego for granting it to our organization, because when they see that in a neighborhood, they're like, oh, you work with them. And that marketing gets out, and then they start to see, we can donate this food. So that's just a little portion of what I believe in the future food rescue.
Nice. I'm just thinking, continuing to use technology to really facilitate the connection, because it seems like gives the need, and then there's the waste, and somehow putting those together with the way the MealConnect, and I can see it just more and more of that happening. Hopefully.
Yeah, right, but we need to get Silicon Valley on this. Okay, you guys, we've ran a tiny bit long, but and I know we've had some questions, but we are open to, well, first let's thank our panel for sharing all this. And lingering questions.
Yeah, so we actually have over 165 agency partners that we work with in order to, again, match them with food businesses across the county. And so if there are any unaffiliated organizations that are picking up from those same businesses, we do need to make sure that there's a strategic plan of when these schedules will be put in place and established, when these pickups will be occurring. And so I don't know if maybe one of the organizations that you were volunteering for was unaffiliated with Feeding San Diego, and maybe that's why they were. Okay. I mean, we have Elizabeth right here from an agency partner. I mean, we do encourage other organizations to come on board as agency partners.
What do you mean by agency partner?
Sure. So community organizations like Life Christian Center, other nonprofit organizations that are, incorporated for the purpose of serving the ill, needy, or infant. We have faith-based organizations that we're working with. We also partner with school pantries and backpack programs, larger, facilities, central locations in various communities across the county. So a lot of these businesses that we were previously rescuing food from, and then some of the ones that were kind of untapped, right, potential donors, are now coming on board and making sure that they're doing things, again, more strategically, right? So is there an agency partner out there that has the equipment that's needed to carry out these pickups safely? To your point, the standards, you need to make sure that if someone doesn't have a refrigerated vehicle, that their distance that they're traveling doesn't exceed 30 minutes, and that they have a freezer blanket in order to actually maintain the cold chain throughout transportation. They have a thermopen so that they can double check, what is the temperature upon arrival at the donor facility versus what is the temperature when they get back to their agency site. You need to make sure that it's safe for consumption. Otherwise, you're not doing anyone a service, right? You want to make sure that, yeah. It's an excellent question. So many of those grocery stores that you actually just referred to, Costco, Albertsons, Sprouts, they were actually already donating prior to this law. They were working with Feeding San Diego to, like you mentioned, learn more about, some guidelines that they may have implemented within their own stores. I know that, Smart and Final does an excellent job of making sure that their individual store staff members know exactly what they're doing when it comes to pulling from the shelves, but then sorting through it and gleaning it, making sure that what they're putting off to the side in a designated area that can be picked up is in fact edible. But we also are able to provide that extra kind of step of training, of education, materials, things like that. So we have signage that we can provide to any donor that might not have their own kind of department signs that goes through, what the extension date is past the expiration date. So like Tinamarie was mentioning, a lot of these different types of food, even dairy, can live past the expiration date. These best buy, sell by dates, they have no indication of food safety. So we are able to provide those signs that they can hang up around their departments so that it's a quick visual, okay, this is something that I can actually just put off to the side rather than throwing it out. We also go and attend, store huddles where managers are coming together and meeting on a weekly basis. We want to make sure that we're fitting seamlessly into their operations. So if we know that they're going to have a meeting with several department heads or leads, we insert ourselves into that meeting, ask if there are any questions. Are there any new staff members that need, further education or training? So we're able to provide that support with all of our donors, and especially the ones that are just coming on board now. Based on the law, we understand that this might be very unfamiliar to them, and food rescue is very nuanced. So we really are able to kind of bridge that gap and make sure that everybody has the education, the training that they need.
Basically, we are currently outsourcing this. We are at Feeding San Diego. We don't do that ourselves, but there are 4 nonprofits,
at least 4,
in San Diego that we work with, and that are very robust on their own, to be frank, that do this exact work you're talking about. work with homeowners a lot in Rancho Santa Fe. We actually just went to a volunteer event there recently and picked lemons from a giant lemon grove at a personal residence in Rancho Santa Fe. So there are other nonprofits that exist for that, and we can provide you with their
Yeah, if you
info.
could, because literally I drive all over Fallbrook and stuff, and I just see literally trees just rotting with fruit on them all over the place.
Senior
gleaners.
Senior
And that's
gleaners.
the beauty of this fabric, right? Because we have all of these different organizations that are focusing on, individual goals that all lead to the same, end goal, right? Which is feeding people, not landfills. And so there's a citrus quarantine in California, so there's also that issue with there needs to be an approved organization that understands exactly how to harvest these types of citrus that can then actually be safely consumed by community members. So we look to our experts like Produce Good, like Senior Gleaners, like I Love to Glean, making sure that we're doing things in a way that does not harm our community, but instead we're calling in all of these individual pieces to the puzzle so that they can go in and harvest the produce from these residential facilities. They can go into some of the larger areas too and make sure that no apple goes to waste. So it's definitely something that we're able to look to our other partners in order to.
What is this citrus quarantine you're talking about?
There's a lot to it. So basically,
the basics.
It's basically just the fact that you have to be able to harvest, like a lemon, for example. There's such a way to harvest a lemon to make sure that the lemon is safe for consumption. Because of the citrus quarantine, it goes up from, I'm blanking on exactly where it is in California right now, but it's been going on for years actually now. And so it does limit the amount of people that are able to actually just pick a lemon off of a tree and consume it. You want to make sure that you're keeping everyone safe. I'm not an expert when it comes to citrus quarantines, but that is what I know. Yeah, and so in 2024, the 1st of January in 2024, those businesses that you're referring to will also be required to donate surplus edible food. And so there are a select few, and I say select few, there are a select few that we are currently working with that are already donating edible food. A good example of a successful story is actually Costco food courts. So we were already rescuing food from Costco warehouses across the county. Last year, actually, they implemented a program that would allow their food courts to donate pizzas, chicken bakes, pretzels, hot dogs, and it was actually really fascinating. They brought Feeding America members as well as some of their top food safety experts at Costco, brought this group together to come up with a procedure. Now there are timestamps, so they're pulling it from the ovens, they're making sure that that temperature is dropping at an appropriate rate during a specific time to make sure that it's still safe for consumption, packaging it up, and then donating it to food recovery organizations. Now, it's quite different than those prepackaged foods. There are very stringent standards when it comes to food safety. There's the packaging involved, there's the labeling, so it all comes at a cost. It also, requires a lot of bandwidth and resources to be able to carry this out. We are definitely starting to tap into that world now, though. Again, with our Costco food court program, we've also worked with several restaurants in the area that are able to donate when they have surplus edible food. But again, just kind of getting to know those donors better to understand where are there gaps that we can fill seamlessly, and something that wouldn't necessarily disrupt their current operations.
I do want to note too that in that tier 2, the restaurants have to be quite big to be mandated to donate. I believe it's 10,000 square feet.
Or 250 seats.
Which is a pretty large restaurant. But I also used to work in the restaurant industry, and most small restaurants really strive to do zero waste cooking. They order, again, it's like a chef. A chef is a good chef if they are only ordering what they need and what they can use and planning menus around that. And, so I think it will be probably bigger for these large restaurants. I even think of buffets, even though I know COVID really messed with that type of style of restaurant, but just a fun fun fact.
Can I just add to that? We're also San Diego Restaurant Week. They've chosen us as their charitable partner for this coming San Diego Restaurant Week. So we're just doing what we can just to make inroads with restaurants for them to be familiar with Feeding San Diego, and so that when 2024 does come, which will be here sooner than we realize, we're going to, and also Kate does a number of webinars just educating the restaurant industry about SB 1383. So we're just like paving the road so that when it is time, they know we're here for them.
That is an excellent question. So it really depends on their operations and their relationship with the Department of Environmental Health and Quality. So there needs to be either a registration or a health permit in order to receive the food and then repackage or repurpose it. So for example, actually, Elizabeth, I'm going to use you as an example. So when we first rolled out the Costco Food Court program, not all of our agency partners had those registrations. So they weren't necessarily able to open the box and then repackage, several slices of pizza so that they could hand it over to individual community members. But at that point, they were able to actually just take that food, as long as it was chilled to 41 degrees or below, they were able to take that food and then distribute it as is to an extra large family, is what Elizabeth used to refer to it as. But now, once we were able to, encourage the agency partners to form relationships with the Department of Environmental Health and Quality, they could sign on to receive these registrations or these health permits. Fees are waived right now, and so these agency partners were able to sign on to these registrations or health permits, apply, receive the certifications that they need to then actually be able to open that box of pizza slices, put them into individual, packaging so that they can distribute out to community members. So there are limited numbers of agency partners that are able to receive prepared foods and actually repurpose them or reheat them because of food safety standards, but they are out there, and that number is growing as time goes on. It's funny you should say that. We were actually put in touch with them just a few days ago. So again, we're tapping into those, wheelhouses and really making sure that if there's opportunity out there, that we're getting in touch with those key players.
I'm ending it there.
Great.